The 3-month wait is over, and Dead by Daylight has given us a new chapter to consume, and it's looking to be an interesting one since it's the first original killer and survivor since March. With the Unknown and Saber Ward being massive W's in the community's eyes, let's see if the new content is like that, or as the title suggested, we're on a doomed course. Doomed Course brings a new survivor and killer. There was a new map in the PTB, but that's coming in a later update. I assume that it might be related to the next killer, or maybe it'll be coming out during Christmas, but that will be in the future. The update also has some usual balance changes, a good number of killers got a quality of life changes, and the new HUD and chest changes for Survivor. They also added a new news system and other fun bits and pieces, which I don't really care for. But with a basic overview of the update, let's get started with the Survivor. Tori Kane is an interesting survivor with a fascinating backstory. She's probably the closest in the Survivor roster to the Entity, traveling into the Bleed, being a cult member until eventually she hesitates and is condemned to become a sacrifice. I'm not joking, in the intro, her walking past Meg on Hook to marvel at the Hook talks a lot about her character. She's really fascinating, but we're here to talk about gameplay, not to nerd out about lore. Tori comes with 3 perks. Clean Break is a lot like Moment of Glory for Trevor Belmont, but it's an active ability and has an easier activation requirement as you only need to complete a healing action on Survivor, which isn't all that hard, and then be healed by another Survivor, but still has the same problem of being a full minute of being broken, but also has a small upside of not having it force upon you, but it's still not that good of a perk. Invocation Treacherous Crows is a really interesting one. When you complete an invocation, every time the killer scares a crow while a survivor is in their terror radius, they are revealed to everyone for 2 seconds. The killer is informed of this, but it also comes with a small downside of, well, you're broken. And it doesn't work on undetectable killers. I don't see too many people running this perk, to be honest, except that they're pairing it with Weeding Spiders, another niche perk. But even then, you have to do both invocations separately, so 2 minutes wasted on a decent effect and a rather pointless one. And finally, the perk that shook the meta, Shoulder the Burden, which once per trial allows you to transfer a hook state to yourself. The killer gets notified of this, and you become exposed for 40 seconds and scream. It's a new perk, and one that people have issues with, but I personally think if you manage your hook states and have a good idea, it can be manageable in most cases. It only becomes a problem when Swifts are involved, but that's pretty much most perks. I think that the risk involved is too low. You get exposed, sure, but you can just hide for 40 seconds or just run Vigil to decrease it. I think the idea of being marked for death would be a more interesting, a bit like the effect from 2v8, having your aura shown to the killer on top of being exposed for maybe like 30 seconds. But I'm just spitballing ideas, but the risk level of the perk is way too low for such a good effect. I will say overall though, they're interesting perks, but I wanted to showcase some builds with her new perks, just some synergies that I liked. For Shoulder the Burden, there are many perks that work decently well, mainly ones that try and mitigate the exposed status effect when it's activated. So perks that help in chase like Finesse or Life or Windows are pretty nice, but you can't just unhook when a survivor is near, so something like Kindred will help from just doing a trade at your own detriment. And of course, Vigil to decrease the length of time exposed, and for other various status effects that might happen. There are many more perks that work. Apparently you can prevent the exposure status effect by just using Calm Spirit, which I think is crazy, but I haven't tested it yet. It could just be cap. Also, when getting footage for this, I got my first hacker ever, and honestly, Nurse can't M1, so I got past the exposed status effect, so value baby. Also, while testing, I found out that, I'm not sure if it's intentional, but if you trade a hook state while being previously hooked before, you don't get the status effects or scream. For Clean Break, honestly, it's just a worse Moment of Glory, but at least the activation effect is simple, but for the life of me, I couldn't get it to proc in the matches I did. And by the time I did, the match was almost over, and I think that's the issue. The only real synergy it has is perks that help faster healing, and I guess to prevent getting hit and chased, but You're probably better off just running Moment of Glory with Plunderers or just bring Strength and Shadows and Botany Knowledge. It's pretty good solo heals and it isn't put in a timer. The only downside is you have to do it in basement. For Invocation Treacherous Crows, fun fact, you can only do it separately, which is really lame, so I just did a build by itself. And the match I played just showed what the worst matchup could be. A pig that sent us to Midwich using Undetectable, Third Seal removing the point of using the perk, Frill to make totems longer, and Plaything to make us permanently oblivious. Add on top of Calm Spirit's 30% longer cleansing, this was hell. Thankfully, due to me getting lucky, I didn't get Plaything and everything went mostly in my favor. I was able to get the tiniest bit of value, which is enough for me to say that it's okay. But I absolutely recommend bringing Calm Spirit due to the fact that you can activate the crows yourself. And you want to try and prevent that or you're just going to get zero value. Overall, a great addition to the Survivor crew. I really like her backstory and her whole vibe being a cultist who showed a glimpse of humanity and is sent to become a sacrifice herself. If only her perks were the same, except for Soul of the Burden, the other two are just nothing burgers of perks, and really will just be used on fringe niche builds. But hey, new invocations are cool, even if the newest one has no value, but does the killer make up for what Tori is lacking?
What the dog doing?
Sorry if I butcher this, but Portia May, also known as the Houndmaster, is the newest killer in Dead by Daylight, and she's pretty much the closest we have to a pirate, so I like her already. She has a really nice looking base outfit and comes with a trusty hound Snug. But what about her power? The Houndmaster is a 150% movement speed killer, which can be increased if she uses an ability, which is the commands for Snug. There are two commands. Snug can perform a chase and search. Chase is very straightforward. Portia whistles to get Snug ready, and you get shown a direction, he will go off and off he goes. But if you don't get a hit, no worries, you get one single redirect. Snug, being a dog, is also very fast and nimble, being able to vault over pallets and windows. He also injures survivors doing those animations when they are mid-vault. But once a survivor is snagged, Snug will drag them towards you while the survivor resists. Currently, there's a little goofy, but where Snug will try and bring the survivor to the original spot he was called, sometimes causing him to go, well, lightning fast. And it's pretty funny if the chase isn't important, but it is a little frustrating if it is. Snug also likes to get stuck on things, and sometimes he'll be too far away to properly do commands, but he has a big heart, so I can't hate him, so instead I pet him, which is something you can do. Survivor's counterplay to getting grabbed is stunning Snug with a pallet, which is what they can do by dragging him towards and eventually breaking free. The window for hitting Chase is quite small, and although it feels rewarding to hit, sometimes because Snug will just drag them away depending on a drop pallet, it can be a tad annoying. The search command makes Snug, well, search. A location you choose, this is mainly used to check up on generators or even completed ones, being a point of reference for Snug to search. He makes a line where he's searching, and then Portia can follow the slipstream, getting a big speed boost. When Snug sees a survivor, heads up, Snug has a Huntress's Lullaby effect. People can hear him coming from 32 meters, they are marked and have killer instinct for a moment. And when they get hit by Portia, the survivor is put into deep wounds. It's not the craziest two abilities, but they work pretty well hand to hand. Of course, Snug being a goofy little goober just refuses to work sometimes, but it's just what you expect on day one jank. I will talk about the perks in the perk showcase section with a certain bong boy, but there are some ideas of builds for each category of player. For base perks, I only tried out Sloppy, Bitter, Whispers, and No Quarter. My main goal was to try and force them to waste time healing, and if they tried to do solo healing, they were in for a rude awakening. Couldn't run a Nurse's Calling due to the limitations, but there's not too many universal perks. I would say if you don't know how to fully utilize Whispers, to go for something like Spies in the Shadows. It has pretty good tracking, or just go for the nuke being Noed. But I would say it's a somewhat decent build. For original killers only, I wanted to try something unique. Another build focusing on making healing more difficult, but using the add-on Spiked Collar. I was able to combine Sloppy and Skull Merchant's half healing after hook, getting a pop for gen slowdown. I would say I'd change a few things, swapping out Disillusion for either endgame slowdown with no way out, or Jagged Compass to help identify close gens to apply pop the two, but overall, it's a decent build. And the final build allowing all perks was a mix of Oblivious and Slowdown with two hex perks, Plaything and Thrill of the hunt, applying Oblivious and Thrill to slow down attempts to break totems, and Jagged Compass to make all hooks apply Gift of Pain to make Gen's torture to complete. But there are thousands of builds you can run at the end of the day. Just run what you like. These are just some few ideas of builds, but overall, they're pretty janky, but decently fun killer. She does have a small issue of not having too much reward factor, as the difficulty on getting certain hits doesn't make up for the challenge of getting it, and Snug sometimes just preventing you from getting the reward, but I still think she's fun. Though she's not a killer that I'll play too often, but I can see myself playing a few matches and having fun from time to time. Everyone's favorite part of new chapters / mid chapters, the balance changes. And we've got a lot of quality of life changes, which is what you love to see. Firstly, sacrificial wards are now common. It's a little weird to see them brown now, but it will help lighten the Survivor Eerie, Ormond, and Autohaven offerings you get every second match instead of removing them outright, which I think is in the right direction to go. Having an easier way to force map randomness is nice though. The Dark Lord got some tweaks, mainly to his shapeshift time being nerfed to 3.5 seconds, and I think that it might be the Goldilocks zone, since honestly 5 seconds was way too long and 2.5 was way too short, but we'll have to wait and see. The Vampire form got a nerf, with Hellfire now taking 10 seconds to charge, and the Wolf form got buffed, with Scent Orbs appearing a second earlier and reduced charge time by 0.15. Overall, fine tweaks. Some parts of the Wolf did feel underwhelming, but it's nice that they didn't nerf Force of Echo to make up for the changes to Scent Orbs. And I like how the killer feels like you can fully rotate between the forms through chases, with the Hellfire taking longer and motivates them to possibly change the Wolf form while they wait for it to recharge. Demogorgon got changes, and it was mainly for the portals. I did hear some people having issues with it, and honestly, I can't really comment on it being too bad, because me being a dumbass, I almost never use portals when I play them. I almost forget, like, I unironically use the Rotten Pumpkin, so the changes don't really affect me. However, it follows the usual changes with buffs to base kit and nerfs to add-ons. Ghostface buffs, you love to see them. It decreased the Night Shroud to 17 and 4.5 seconds to Mark Survivors at the cost of Wall Eyes Matchbook and Philly being nerfed. I honestly do still see Philly being used, as it still has the decreased stalk it had, but now people might be inclined to use other add-ons, like the Broken Driver's License. I still don't understand how that add-on has not been nerfed, it's actually so crazy. Chucky got a buff and 2 nerfs, one being massive. Chucky's scamper time is now 1 second, but his Heidi Ho's cooldown has been extended to 12 seconds. I'm glad they changed these 2 simple things. Every time I play Chucky, I always feel like, man, if only I had that split second, I could have gotten them. Hopefully this will lighten that feeling. But the biggest nerf, and the one that took long enough, is Rat Poison. Got its range and duration halved. Good fucking riddance. You won't be missed. I'm really happy with the Vecna changes. Every spell got a 3-second reduction except Fly, which was now 25 seconds, and Mage Hand being longer, which is now 40 seconds, while the respective spell reduction add-ons have been nerfed, and minor nerfs to time Dispelling Sphere disabling items by 15 seconds, and increased cooldowns on cancelling spells by 2.5 seconds. Like I said, I love these changes a lot. It feels almost required to bring one of the 2 spell reduction add-ons, and although for the most part it doesn't change the fact that the add-ons reducing the weight for the spells will basically be top tier, but now you can try out different things and not feel pressured on the spell weight factor as much. A lot of people were worried about behavior saying that they were changing Wesker. A lot of people thought that the hug tech was going to be removed, only for it to be the tiniest change, reducing the bound cooldown to 5.5 and nerfing the leather gloves. But I wouldn't be surprised if next time Mr. 7 Minutes will be gutted like other killers. Skull Merchant. And finally, for killer changes, the one I've been waiting for, well, since I played the game, honestly, Myers changes. Myers is now 110% when he's in tier 1 instead of 105. Doubled the Survivor Stalk meter on Survivors, making it not run out as often, and decreased the amount of Stalk you need by 2, which makes tier 3 more of an occurrence, without specific add-ons, which is nice. But my favorite part, they increased the amount of Stalk you get when further away from the Survivor, and decreased it when you were close. Originally it was 0.1, when you were away from the survivor, which made no sense. When Myers stalked in the films, he wasn't breathing down their necks or toying with them. That's more of a Ghostface thing. Myers is the man behind the bush, stalking from a distance, one blink and he's gone. I feel like you can finally emulate that type of fear now with the changes. Up close is now 0.4, which is a big nerf compared to the one it was. But I think it's a good way to incentivize players to mainly stalk from far away. Big waves in the add-on department as well. Scratch Mirror is keeping the original Myers speed, and thus it will still be funny. The purple add-on got a massive buff, halving the required stalk and everything, which I personally deem to be unfun/boring. On Myers, which got nerfed to the ground to a point where they're almost unusable together. Tombstone piece is now 15 points to stalk, and Infinite Tombstone adds 800% longer stalk, which in a bot match can be felt. It's torture. Just imagine a real match where the survivors can still hide and lock as a counter it. Overall, really solid changes, and will finally bring Myers out of being a really exhausting early game killer, but it'll be interesting to see Ott's and other people's opinions on the changes, and if Myers will be finally out of D tier. Now we've got the killer perk changes. Dominance got doubled, which might make a little bit of a difference, but even then I still think it's gonna be a meh perk. Same as Human Greed, which also got buffed, decreased the cooldown on kick to 20 seconds, but at least they'll be more viable, I guess. Languid Touch got an insane buff, only having a 5-second cooldown, meaning survivors will actually have to respect the crows around the map, and the killing blow to the 5 users of Dead Hard. Of course, that's implying that people will actually want to use this perk, but I can see some good value. Maybe this will motivate behavior to make more perks that only work when you're not exhausted, but we'll just have to wait and see. Rest in peace to Distressing and Thrilled the Hunt's bonus blood points, but they got buffs to make up for it. 30% bigger terror radius for Distressing and 14% cleansing and blessing reduction. So they're more viable, especially Thrill. I expect to see more hex-focused killers to bring that, and maybe Dominance. But the one that everyone was waiting for, Weave Attunement, got nerfed. The aura is now 8 meters instead of 12, and you can see the item that's showing your aura. I personally think that the aura could have stayed like 10. The main part that I wanted is you can see the item that's showing the aura, especially in solo queue when you can't tell your teammate about where you got Franklin, and that's just me. But overall, for the killer side, some nice changes, especially in the quality of life side of things. But how about Survivor? Survivor's got a bunch of quality of life changes, so now you can see all progress on every activity. This means exit gates, chests. This also adds showing survivors blessing, mending, or healing themselves, and some killers show up on the HUD as well, which ones I'm not sure though. Chest now takes 8 seconds to unlock instead of 10. I'm so happy that this tiny change happened. It makes me feel like running a chest build for the first time in my life has finally been paying off. But perk-wise, Ace in the Hole basically became the perfect add-on hoarder perk, as now it's got a higher rarity chances, and if you escape with any item, you get to keep it. I know my friend is gonna love this change. Continuing with chest perks, Pharmacy has been changed to be active permanently and guarantee a green medkit. And finally, Plunderer's Instinct's range has been doubled, and now has a 50% chance of higher rarity items. Chest Nation, rise up. But for other things that are not chest related, lame. Sane Partner now shows auras for 6 seconds and has a cooldown of 40. So the funny perks can still be more spammable. No One Left Behind got a massive buff. It did lose the additional blood points on healing and unhooking, but it did get double in all of its healing speeds on unhooking speeds, and it also got a 3% movement speed increase and a 5-second increase when unhooking a survivor, which is pretty nice. It'll be a pretty decent end game healing perk. Overall, small changes to Survivor, but nothing too crazy unless you're a part of the Chess Nation, baby. But we still have one more section before we can wrap up this update. New perks means more goofy ways to play Wraith, so let's get into it. All Shaking Thunder is an interesting perk on paper. A 75% extra lunge for 16 seconds sounds really good, until you have to read drop from a distance requirement, and then it falls apart. And honestly, I got a good map to showcase that. The only location due to basement's placement to get that lunge distance is in the middle of the map, making it impossible to use if the survivors are doing gens in the corners. Of course, lock down the middle, but you're wasting time just to get a lunge boost for 16 seconds. However, 155% extra lunge out of Cloak with Coop and All Shaking Thunders is just stupid and is worth it for the funny. But in a real match, you wouldn't really want to run it on Wraith or really any killer, unless you're sending yourself somewhere like Midwich. No quarter punishes survivors for solo healing, but if their team knows that simple fact or in the match I had a syringe, that problem is completely bypassed. However, I ran a build like this, and I understand it might be confusing. Deathbound on Wraith? There is a simple reason for this, and of course you could run other perks, maybe the Knight's Hex, or just run Sloppy and replace the green add-on for mobility. But due to it being a forced scream and you can't be broken like Knight's Hex, and it tells me the location of survivors outside of a nurse's range, and with Wraith's speed and tracking, I can get right back into the chase to mangle them once more like a bootleg legion. Of course, you can get better value from other perks, but it all comes to Terminus keeping them broken. One small change I would add is swapping No Quarter with No Way Out, but this is a showcase of the new perks and not a replacement one, but overall No Quarter's value is quite limited. See a bunch of medkits bring it, but if not, then probably better to just bring something else. Scourge, Hook, Jagged, Compass has made the impossible happen. I got value from Hanged Man's Trick. I brought a full Scourge Hook build and then went to town. The ability it has is really nice. I think with a more focused Scourge build, things like Floods or Gift of Pain, you'll get a tons of value. I can see this being meta on killers like Huntress, but on Wraith, it's pretty alright. Of course, you can always use the Eerie to check gen progress map-wide, but being able to have more Scourges around the map is always really nice. Overall, these perks by themselves aren't all that good. They like to be paired with other perks to really get the true value, but even then, Jagged Compass is the only one I can say is really worth it in almost any circumstances. But let's wrap this video up. Before I say thank you for watching this video and all the other stuff, Junji Ito is coming to Dead by Daylight, and by god the cosmetics are so good. I love Tomie, so having a cosmetic of her from the story of the painter makes me jump for joy. Shame we didn't get the creature from the end of the Enigma of Amigara Fault, but what we got is still incredible, so I can't complain. To put everything together though, we got a really cool survivor lore-wise, and a pretty fun but also really janky killer, like we always do, and some decently healthy changes, which is all you can really ask for in a Dead by Daylight update, so altogether, another decent update from BHVR. With all that still said and done, thank you for watching this video. December has finally came up, so on top of the normal Persona and Christmas update for Dead by Daylight, I will hopefully be getting around to doing a top 10 games I played this year. So if any of that interests you, then why not like and subscribe. But with that, have a wonderful day.